Good morning, friends. Welcome to the Gainsborough studio, the home of Felixstowe TV. We're doing a special today. It's a birthday special. It's a special for somebody who actually saw the first light of day on this day in 1926. So young Eric, it was you, wasn't it?
It was indeed.
And you arrived on this day.
But before we start, I should very much like to do something special.
Right.
Because I've got a huge family, and so many of them have sent me cards, have phoned up, have been in touch, and said happy birthday. And I'd like to say a very special thank you to each and every one of you. You're all special to me, and thank you very much for remembering. And friends who've rung up, I've had one from all over the country.
Brilliant.
Today. I've not been off the phone, so thank you very much, one and all. It's very nice.
Perhaps you can remind us how many children, effectively, you and your wife raised.
Well, we've got a big family, as you know,
Yes.
and we had 9 blood children.
Right.
And I mean, I've told this story before,
Yes.
and we adopted others, and so we've had a very big family. And I'm very pleased to
Yes.
say it was fascinating this last weekend,
Right.
because one of my sons,
Yes.
sons with inverted commas, he's been in Australia for 35 years. And
we know the man.
He's come over to England. No, not Blair.
Oh, another
No, this
one.
is another one.
Dear me.
And
Yes.
this is Alec.
Right.
And he's come over, and he's come over to live. He's got 2 lovely daughters in Australia, which he's left there.
Right.
But he's come over to live, and he's just spent the weekend with me.
How wonderful.
And he remembers all sorts of things. He was telling me how I'd caught him smoking as a boy,
Yes.
and I made him smoke a cigar.
Oh, yes, I could.
And to put him off, obviously.
Yeah, and it didn't.
But obviously it hasn't, because he kept going outside to smoke. So whether I gave him the urge to smoke, I don't know. But it was meant well.
Right.
But he's had a very exciting life, because he's done all sorts of jobs and and he's a very high flyer. He had a big team of people doing a turnover, commanding a budget of several million pounds. So he's done very well for himself. But he started off in Australia. I got him. He wanted to leave school. He reminded me this. I'd forgotten it.
Oh, right.
And apparently I said to him, well, it's either you go to, for some further education, or you go to sea.
Oh, right.
He said, well, I'll go to sea.
Good man.
So he did a lot on the sea, but then he went to Australia on a cruise, I think, or something, and he
fell in love.
And he jumped ship.
Oh, did he?
Well, or the equivalent of it.
Failed to rejoin.
And he's stayed there ever since.
Oh, right.
But he's a lovely boy, and he's done very well for himself.
When you say boy...
Well, he's now 55.
Exactly.
So it's rather good. I went to a pub yesterday, and there were 2 men at the bar, and they were talking about age, and of course, me being me, I talk to everybody.
Yes, you do.
And I said to him, I've got sons your age, and one of them was an Irishman. He put his arm round my shoulders, and he wouldn't let go. So he's got his disadvantage. But let me come back to the thing. I thought this last month has been a happy month, except in one respect, and that is I've just sold my plane.
Yes, you were saying you were looking to do.
I think it's interesting to talk about flying, because it's something which people don't think about, and it's a hobby which is absolutely incredible. I can't tell you how much. I wish I'd found it 50 years ago.
Okay.
When I was 80, that's
that was
nearly 10 years ago.
9 years ago.
Well, I'm in my 90th year now.
So they say.
But when I was 80,
yes.
I was farming. I had 250 acres by the River Ouse. And this is at Bridge Farm.
Yep.
I also had a tourist attraction, which I think we've shown in the past.
Yes.
But we had a mile-long river there.
Yes.
And this is when Nelson learnt to sail.
Yep.
But
indeed.
We had a neighbour, and he put in a strip.
And
he had a light aircraft.
Oh, right.
And he came in with it, and then he had some friends in, and so they invited me over to meet them.
Right.
And of course, one of them took me up in one of these light aircraft, and I was
fascinated,
smitten with it.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
So of course, I then started on it. I'm pleased to say it took me 3 years, and I got my pilot's license at the age of 83. and I've been flying
That's
ever
pretty
since.
good, yes.
But I'll tell you a little bit more about it in a second.
Right.
But at 83, I got my pilot's license, and I've been flying ever since. I had my own plane at Stoke Ferry. I hired a runway and a hangar.
Oh, right.
And,
so it's been up there ever since?
It's been up there ever since. But as you know, my wonderful wife that I was married
Sadly,
to for 65 years, she died a year ago, and I haven't flown since then, so my license has lapsed. I've got to get it back again. You have to do at least 5 hours a year to keep your license
Indeed
up.
you do.
But I can get it back again easily
Yes,
enough.
indeed.
But coming back to flying, so I went into this thing, and I thought, absolutely, the freedom to go over and see all the town below you and the farm, and absolutely, it shattered me.
Oh, right.
So I went to this airfield, and a wonderful man, Chris Hassel, and he taught me to fly.
Right.
And
So what did you learn?
I've got a mind which likes to find the ins and outs of everything, unfortunately. And so I discovered that there's this Cessna type plane, which is a small one that people, when they talk about ordinary flying, this light aircraft, that's what they think of. But I did about 20 or 30 hours in Cessnas, or the equivalent, but I found that you might as well be in a car.
They are a bit like that.
You could have, you're shut in, and you look round,
and you've got all your armchair.
I took my lovely wife up in it, and she was bored to tears. I said, "Oh, there's Sandringham down. You saw that little tiny lot down there," and so. I thought, well, they're not it. Then I went up to the north of England and did a course in autogyros. Do you know the difference between an autogyro and a helicopter?
No.
Well, a helicopter, which is what people think of, you see the blade going round, that is driven by the engine. Right. And that is what creates the sort of vacuum above it, which lifts, takes you up. An autogyro is just revolves by itself. Right. It's not driven by the engine. Right. And it has to maintain a rotary action of 350 rounds a minute. Right. 350.
60 revs. Yes.
If it drops below 350 revs,
you fall out the sky.
You just come down bonk like that, and the death rate on autogyros is horrendous. Right. Unfortunately.
Do we want to talk about the deaths?
I love the autogyro.
Yes, I bet you do.
And it's so simple.
Well, you're right in there, aren't you?
It's so simple to overcome this, because all they need is something which, if that drops below 350, it just connects it up to the engine and drives it back up again. And you still maintain your lift. Yes. It's a very easy answer. The helicopter has the same thing in reverse, strangely enough, because if the engine fails...
Yes, it's got a flutter.
No, this is the tricky bit, and this has been several terrible deaths resulting from it. If the engine fails when it's going round, they've got, I think it's 2 seconds to disconnect the blades from the engine.
Or else they shatter.
Because if they don't, that slows down below the dreaded 350 revolutions. Do you follow what I mean? Yeah. And the helicopter just drops out of the sky.
And that frightens Bella to death.
Come on, Bella. Come on, Bella. Hello, Bella. Come on, come back, come back, come on. Come on, Bella, I didn't mean to frighten you.
I'm frightened, she said. But, and I'm not. Now, so where does the microlights fit into all of this? So
I did that. Right. That put me off that. But as I was just going to say, there's a very easy answer to the autogyro. All they've got is to have a connecting thing, so that if it drops below 350, you connect the engine up to it and you carry on. But anyway, that isn't there presently. No. So then I went in for the... I tried gliding. I didn't try it, but I observed it, and I didn't like that, because basically you're so dependent on
the elements. It's like sailing,
and you've got very little control. And it's I didn't take to the idea of
but
gliding.
You become
I like
a bird.
To be in control. Yes. And then I came across the microlights.
Yes.
Now these people don't realise it. The microlights, they've got 70 horsepower engines on them. You've got to 5,000 or 10,000 feet. I've been up over 6,000 feet in them, and they're completely open, and they seat two. Right. And it's a wonderful feeling. So when I discovered the microlight,
You're away.
I was away. That was it for me, because you feel as though, you know, and you've got this wing.
You're in the elements, aren't you?
And
Yeah.
you control the wing, you move it.
Right.
On the Cessna and the Autogyro, you've got a proper stick and all the rest of it, all the normal controls. But on the microlight, you've got a bar which controls the wing.
Right.
And the wing, so if you want to go off to the right, you
go
push,
t'other way,
you
right.
push it that way or this way, and you go.
Right.
But you can travel between 70 miles an hour and 100 miles an hour. You've got a range of, I think it's 300 miles.
It's not bad, then, is
And
it?
it's brilliant.
Yeah.
People don't realise it. And the freedom and the feeling of it's incredible. And what is so important is they're not expensive. You can buy a second-hand one for £3,000 or £4,000.
Right.
And your
Price of a good dress.
your dress is not my dress. But anyway, so if anybody wants a wonderful experience, try microlighting, because it's an incredible thing. Once you've done it, you'll never leave it. I wish I'd found it 50 years ago.
Well, from what you're saying, it would appear to be more affordable, less dangerous.
Yes, absolutely.
But it really puts you in amongst it. I mean, my brother-in-law, way back, was a glider pilot.
Oh,
and
yes.
What he loved was you are of the elements, and you've got to work with the thermals, and you need to know your area. And on good days, you can go for nearly ever. But he loved it, absolutely loved it.
But when I went out to Australia,
big thermals there.
This wasn't gliding.
No.
I went out to see Blair, you know, my eldest son.
Hello, Blair. How are you doing? Long time no see.
But I went out to see Blair.
Yes.
But close by there was an airfield, so I was able to go and fly microlights. They had microlights there,
super.
and they were incredible, because I went up with this. I think I was in the middle of learning when I went out there the first time, and I went with this pilot. Now he was a real. What's the word, you know?
Daredevil,
madman. I don't know anything
probably.
like.
There's a few of them out
the
there.
Australian one is quite incredible.
Yeah.
And just to give you an idea of the sort of things he did, you don't go into cloud.
No, that would be very wise.
Because you know, if you see cloud, you either go below it or you go above it,
right.
but you don't go into it, because obviously you're suddenly surrounded. You can't see
You haven't got a
anything.
clue where
you
you're
haven't
going.
A clue. You haven't
So
got
what
radar.
navigation do you have on board? Compass?
Well,
Anything
just
at all?
a compass. That's all.
That's what you've got.
That's all
is
you've
it?
got.
Right.
And but you plot your course. If you're going somewhere specific,
Right.
You have a chart strapped to your knee.
Oh, like First World War pilots.
Absolutely.
Up there. Yes.
And so you strap that to your knee, and you've got the course plotted beforehand,
Right.
and you can see, you know, the signs where you are. There's a wind farm over there, or there's a river there,
Yeah,
or
lovely.
there's a town there,
Yeah,
or
follow
a
the
village
rivers.
down there.
Follow the rivers.
Absolutely,
Yes,
it's
wonderful.
incredible. But I mean, in practice,
Right.
I mean, the people they tour England. They go all the way around.
Yes.
But I mean, the sort of flying that I did. Or
Yes.
do. I just like to go out for an hour or two, and the experience is unbelievable. You feel as though you've thrown everything out of the window.
Yeah, I bet.
All your cares and worries go, and it's absolutely a wonderful
So
feeling.
how low are you able to come above built-up areas? What's the restriction on that?
Well, normally you shouldn't go above any built-up areas.
You've got to
in
fly
microlight.
over them, though, haven't
You can do, but I think you normally keep a couple of thousand feet
Oh,
above
do
it.
you? I was just thinking we need coverage of Felixstowe from the air at some point.
Yes, well, that would be
Don't
good.
we? We do need to do that.
You
We
know-
do. So if there's anybody out there who'd
we-
like to volunteer, we'd perhaps
We've
assess
got a
it.
wonderful lady here. Her husband had a Spitfire.
Oh,
and
love it.
unfortunately he died.
Right.
And she's taken it over. And
Ah,
very
right.
often you'll see that Spitfire going along the
Is
seafront.
this Grace?
Grace, I think
Ah,
that's
right.
it. Yes, she
Oh, right.
flies along the
Yes, she
seafront
does.
of Felixstowe.
We need to do that.
I'd love to
Yeah.
meet her. I think
Yeah.
she sounds a wonderful woman.
Well, we should get her in the studio,
But-
shouldn't we?
but,
So talking about, so you've sold the aircraft,
So I've
but
sold-
you intend to keep flying,
I
do you?
intend to keep flying, but it's just a question of time, because
Right.
at the present moment
And you've got to have a yearly medical, I take it?
Oh yes, yearly medical. And
Right.
the medical isn't so hard.
Don't tell them. They'll have they'll see an aircraft and they'll run indoors into the into the bunker.
No, people don't realise it, that the regulations are much easier. You only have to have perfect vision in one eye. So,
Right.
so you don't have to have it in both eyes.
Right.
And because my left eye is not as good as my right eye, but my
Okay.
right eye is all right.
That is good.
And they accept correction. So if you use glasses, you could, as long as
All
you've
right.
got good vision with glasses,
Then you're
it's
away.
all right. And you've got to have
Yeah.
normal health and normal what's it. But I've so far, thank God, I've got through the medical
Yeah.
all right.
I love
But
it.
it's a wonderful experience, and I'd recommend it to anybody. And in fact, youngsters today, as I say, you can buy it for such a small amount. Lessons, you can go and have lessons in it, and
Well, certainly if 3 or 4 of you banded together, I mean,
Oh, well,
it would be very affordable,
very
wouldn't it? I
affordable.
mean, it would be, you could stop going out every Friday, Saturday and throwing it down the throat and get yourself a microlight.
but what I wanted to do, of course, was to find a local farmer or somebody who's got
Yeah.
a field
And get yourself a landing
to
stage.
and he's mowing, because you can have. And I was telling you about this man in Australia.
Yes, you
the
were.
sort of thing he was so. But
Yeah.
he said, "Oh, let's go into clouds."
Oh!
And
Yes.
honestly, we went into the clouds, and what an experience! You're wrapped up with this white.
Yeah.
You don't know whether you're up, down, sideways. What's it? Absolutely.
No, you wouldn't. It's unnerving, isn't it?
unbelievable,
Disorientating.
unnerving. And I would never have dared go in, and nobody in England would take you into a cloud like that. And he went in this cloud and went.
And he just kept going straight ahead, I take it.
And on
Run on the
another
compass.
occasion, I said we were flying, I don't know where we were flying,
Right.
over the Australian countryside, and I said, "Oh, I'm bursting to..."
Yes, as you do.
As
As you
said.
do.
He said, "That's okay."
Make a cloud.
We went straight down, he didn't even bother to look for it, as long as it was straight. And we went down and landed in this patch of land.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I mean, we could have hit something. We could have what's it. And he said, "There you are, jump out."
Have a wee.
I got back.
I mean,
and away we went again.
That must be the most interesting wee stop you've ever had in your life,
It
I would
was,
have thought.
I think.
Great.
But I learnt a lot from him.
Yes.
And of course, I was able to return the compliment because he'd gone out to Australia. He'd lost contact with his mother.
Oh, right.
And by strange coincidence, this is my Foti theory, you know.
Yeah, I
the
know.
answer to almost
Yeah,
everything.
things do tend
There's
to
a
happen.
plan. There's an overall plan for everything.
I'm not so sure
And
about that, but on we go.
This man there, I meet him
Yes.
just like that.
Yeah.
And his mother, believe it or not, she lived near me at Bridge Farm.
No.
Yeah, isn't that incredible?
That
and
is
so
incredible.
I put them back together again.
Brilliant.
And they're back together
Oh,
now.
that's great.
So it just shows you
Yeah,
how
it
there's
is.
an overall plan. All you've got to do is to plug in correctly, as I've told you before.
Well, you know, I love it when you go to the States or somewhere and you say where you're from and said, "Oh, we know somebody in London. Do you know them?" You know, and I mean, what is that, 8 million people?
Absolutely.
Perhaps, sadly, I don't on this
Yeah.
occasion.
Well, I had a secretary for 30 years, Norma,
Oh, right.
wonderful woman.
Yeah.
But I used to sort of write to a travel agent in London. Now, what is that great big road that runs for about 2 miles round down to Marble Arch? I can't remember. Marylebone Road. It's about 2 miles
It's
long.
a long road.
Oh, it's a long road.
Very wide, lots of happening.
One day I came across her and she'd written this letter in there, and she'd just put down so-and-so, Marylebone Road, London. You know, what's it?
And it got...
No.
Oh,
So
right.
I said to her, "Well, Norma, you know, you've got to put a number in." She said, "You don't need a number. Everybody in the road will know." But it just shows you, it's just
It is.
different standards. And
Right, so I did sort of say to you on congratulating you on getting to your 89th that you've now left the very lucky Chinese number of 88.
oh, is it 88 a lucky Chinese
8
number?
is apparently the Chinese luckiest number, whereas we might have 3 or 7 apparently.
Well,
They
that
go-
doesn't work because in
But-
my 88, well,
Yeah.
with 88, I lost my
I know,
my wife.
I know, so no,
so
no.
it hasn't.
I
been
don't
lucky.
know whether it's because the figure is very full, the fullest figure, so it's sort of,
could
it might be the representation of a very full, very fat
Yeah.
person with no arms or legs, but certainly, well, it may be that, I don't know.
I
And why
don't
we
know.
have 7 or 3, I'm not sure.
But I don't know whether you
Right.
Remember Ken Wallace?
Probably.
Now,
who
Ken
was-
Wallace, he was the one, You Only Live Twice.
Right.
You know, the James Bond
Yes,
film.
yes.
And in it, this, you know, James Bond is in an
Yes, he is.
autogyro.
Yes, he is.
And he wants it. Now,
He came here.
Ken Wallace.
He brought it here. He brought it on the
did,
seafront.
absolutely,
Yes, he did. Nice man.
Ken Wallace is a dear friend of mine. He's
Oh,
dead
was he?
now,
He is, yes,
unfortunately,
he did die.
But he died at the age, I think it was 96.
Yes, he was.
And he was flying right up to the time he died.
Was he really?
And he was a wonderful character.
Yeah, he was.
And he had, I don't know how many of those autogyros, but they did it, you know, the film.
Yes.
They did it in the mountains, that flying.
Right.
So it just shows you how wonderful the autogyros.
Very, very adaptable.
Very adaptable.
Indeed they are.
And he was wonderful. And I mean, many's the time I've been over to see him, and he's got in his little autogyro
Right.
and gone off, and he's out from the field and flew round.
Right.
The memory I've got of him, he would, because the autogyro was more open, even his one
Yes.
was. It was more open even
Get cameras
than
and things on
what's it? And he used to fly round the field with his arms stretched out like that and his legs stretched out.
All right.
And he used to fly round the field round my head.
Magic.
But he came to
It was a
Felixstowe,
classic car thing, he
and
came.
he also
I
went. Now,
think.
what is the nearest airfield here? The one that was.
Well, there's Duxford.
Not Duxford. The
That's
one,
too
the
far.
one was
There's
a
one at
museum
Green.
on it. We used to
What,
do.
the Transport Museum?
No,
Yes,
there's
yes,
an
yes.
aircraft museum on it.
Oh, right. Well,
It's close by here. It's
well
within-
there's Martlesham. They've got-
Martlesham.
Yeah.
Martlesham,
Oh, right.
Martlesham.
They still got a grass track there, then, have they? A landing stage?
No, they haven't, unfortunately. They've got the end of a
'Cause they
concrete...
built the houses
They've
there,
got
didn't
an
they?
end of a concrete, not an asphalt
the runway.
And in fact,
Perry
I
track.
tried to get the lady who owns it to let me use it, because I would have been able, but she wouldn't,
No, it wouldn't.
unfortunately.
No.
But we used to do a weekly program when we first started Felixstowe TV. We used to do a weekly program from there.
Oh, right.
We used to go to the... we used to go there on a Wednesday,
Right.
and we'd always interview one or the other of the people there, because they all had lovely stories to
Indeed.
tell and
Yeah.
what have you.
Magic.
And so,
Yes. I haven't told you my first experience of flying, have I?
no.
Okay, I was a boy entrant at Cosford. And one of their things they wanted to do for esprit de corps and whatever was to introduce you to the delights of flying.
Oh, yes.
And we had a lot of flight lieutenants and the rest who needed to keep their hours up. So they had a small squadron of tiger moths.
Oh, yes.
So you used to go in, get your parachute on,
Yes.
so you felt as if you'd done something in your trousers, because
Yeah.
you had to do that and then get into the air. It was so you walked in this very
Yes,
important.
yeah.
And then you went up. Well, the guy I had was a Czech Air Force officer who joined in the '39 conflict.
Yes.
And what he used to do, or loved to do, was to dive bomb trains.
Dive bomb trains.
Yeah,
that
and there's a
sounds
long
really
strip
dangerous.
going across from
yeah.
Shivno and whatever,
Yeah.
and it was up on a big embankment,
Yeah.
and he used to delight just, you know what I mean? Flight Lieutenant Divis was an absolute madman, a complete madman, and he'd do all the loops and whatever, and if you didn't come down green in wanting to, then he hadn't done a good job. So that was my introduction to the delights of flying, and then he allowed you to fly.
Oh,
sort of,
that's
I mean, a
good.
tiger moth flies itself, doesn't it?
Well,
But that was quite an interesting introduction
so
to flying.
You've had something of it.
Oh
That's
yes,
really
yeah,
good.
and I can see the attraction of the open bit.
Yes.
You know, because you're in it.
Well,
aren't
you're
you?
in
You're
it.
of the element, and it's a bit like cars now, isn't it? They are so comfortable. You can be
Well,
sat at home in your lounge,
Yes.
and you're sort of a bit impervious to the risk that you're taking.
Well, it's
often.
It's the equivalent to an open car on a lovely
Yes, it
day
is.
with the
It
sun
is.
shining.
It is.
It's absolutely
It is.
gorgeous.
So what's the plans for the 89th year then? You're going to continue researching and doing,
Well,
and
as you know, this year I've got 3 inventions on the go.
you have, haven't you? Good on you.
I've got the alcoball, which
Yes.
I think is it's a thing which will do so much good.
Right.
Because I've found this Japanese herb which actually satisfies the craving for alcohol.
Oh, right.
And I've made these little balls which you suck.
Don't tell the drinks industry that, Eric.
Well, dear, I don't mind. The alcohol does such a lot
It
of
does.
harm.
Yes,
and
it can.
drinking and
Overdose
driving
is a
kills
problem.
so many people.
Yes.
And so if somebody wants to drink can drive. They've got the urge.
Yes.
So all they do is
Have
suck
one of
an
these.
alcohol,
Yeah.
and that satisfies their craving for alcohol, and they can drive to
Yeah.
work or drive to their friends, or
Right.
drive down to the pub.
Oh, you could.
But,
and suck an alcohol. Yes.
And I've just got a new one, which
Right.
is a laser dart, because I think darts.
Oh, yes, you were talking about that.
That's a very good one.
Yeah.
We've just made up a sample of that.
Right.
And of course, we've got the one for heating water with using a magnetron. So
Oh, yes, you were
got
saying.
three.
Well, that will keep you out of
Keep me out
trouble.
of it. And of course,
So, are you going to do any travelling this year? Are you
yes,
off to visit anybody?
I'm off to Malta next month.
Right.
And strangely enough, when I had the place at Bognor,
Yes.
remember, I think one of our stories, I knocked 5 hotels
Yes, you did.
into one.
You did.
And we made the Shoreline Club, and we had the first all-night raids
Yeah.
in the 60s.
Yeah, that's going back a bit.
And
Yes.
we had a beat group there,
Yes.
and a resident beat group. We used to have all sorts in. We had very well-known names
Yes.
there. But we had our own resident group, and the leader of that,
Right.
he was Maltese.
Was he really?
And
Right.
while we were there,
Uh-huh.
he wanted to get married, so he brought his wife, his girlfriend, over from Malta.
All right.
Because his parents weren't there, I did the honours.
Oh,
I gave her
right.
away.
Did you?
Now, just to
Yeah.
know my plan, I could tell you about.
Ah.
One of my daughters had arranged for me to go to Malta next month.
Right.
Christmas card comes in from Joe.
Right.
This is the
Yeah.
young lad. A young lad.
He was
an old
then,
man,
not
an
now.
old man now.
Yes.
And he said, do you know, this year is our 50th wedding anniversary.
Magic.
And so there am I,
Ideal.
going back to Malta. I haven't been to Malta now for 20 or 30 years.
Right.
And we must go back on the year that it's his 50th, and I gave his wife away.
Oh.
And Blair was the best man, and he's just sent me a photograph of him in his top hat and morning coat.
Oh, the whole bit.
Whole bit. So,
Well, there you go.
There
So,
you are, so-
undoubtedly for young Eric, it's going to be a very exciting year. So this is an extra. This is a birthday extra. So have a lovely birthday.
Thank you very
won't
much. Thank
And
you so much.
we will try to get to the end. No. So we will update Eric's life story over the next coming months. So bye for now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.